What's going on, my beautiful friends? In this video, I am sharing with you a Q&A that I did on live stream just the other day. I am, in fact, wearing the same shirt. I did wash it, though. It is kind of going through some of the comments that you guys left me on my original video, and then some of the comments and questions that people were leaving in the live stream. And for those of you that were in the live stream, I really appreciate it. I would love to do that again sometime. But I wanted to make a quick disclaimer because the quality on the video is garbage. I didn't realize that until after I downloaded the video from YouTube, that the quality is so bad. So I just wanted to let you know ahead of time that visually not that great. I also don't really do much of anything, but it is a long form video where we talk about all kinds of things. And so I hope you enjoy. Here it is. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to a quick stream where I'm going to be talking about quitting cannabis and really responding to a lot of the questions that you all left me on not my most recent video, but the video where I really go into 10 plus years of weed addiction, what I consider to be the truth that nobody tells you, and really more specifically my truth, but clearly it's one that you guys really relate to. I want to start out this broadcast by giving you guys a little bit of a shout out because I have been making videos on YouTube here for years. I mean, I think the first video I ever posted on YouTube was back in 2013, and it's like a little assignment that I did for my animation class. It's called Silly Putin Swag. Things have changed regarding Putin since then, and regarding me and my lifestyle, weed, all that shit. And so I didn't know if anybody was interested in watching this as a stream. What up, I Dig Sheet? There you go. We already got somebody. How's it going? Appreciate you being here. But regardless, I'm going to be posting this as a regular video after this as well. But the whole point of this live is to kind of go through, read some of these comments, and talk about my experience. I mean, you guys know that I have been smoking weed like consistently almost every single day, multiple times a day since I was like 15 years old, 14 years old. I'm 28 years old now, and I'm working on getting off of it. And one of the things that has helped more than anything is doing all of this fucking recording, making these videos, streaming for you guys. What up, Project Phoenix? What up, K-Dog? Appreciate y'all being here. And so we're going to jump into this. First disclaimer is this is, of course, all entirely my subjective experience, right? I have no intention of putting information on people or telling people the way it is. One of the things that you're going to see in these comments is that a lot of people really enjoy their relationship with cannabis. A lot of people swear by the effects that it adds to their life, like the positive aspects. And so I'm not here at all to try to talk down on that, right? I'm just here to share my experience and sort of what I've been through. But I thought some of these comments were phenomenal, like genuinely so insightful, and I appreciate you guys deeply for being willing to share them with me. So here we go. First things first, everybody that's live, thank you guys for being live. I really appreciate you guys. Drop a comment, hit that sub button. Let me know what I can talk about on this live. But for those of you watching at home later on, appreciate you, and hopefully this is not too fucking boring. All right. So first and foremost, we got a comment from Carrie Barron. I really appreciate the comments from older people, especially. Now, I'm not saying 65 is old, right? Carrie says they're 65 years old. That's not old, but it's older than me, right? So I appreciate some quote unquote old heads giving me some value. Project Phoenix says I'm smoking for all you quitters right now. Love it. 65 years old here. Same story with early use at 15. Became an all-day, everyday habit. It got old and I totally stopped at age 30. Now, 35 years later, I've rediscovered cannabis and I partake about 3 evenings a week. It's not an addiction this time, and I've been partaking at about the same rate for 5 years now. I'm very happy with my current use of cannabis. Moderation is the key. There's a difference between there's difference between use and abuse. Absolutely agree with that. Then that's one of the things that I sort of struggle with. I look at this, like the future, right, of the type of person that I want to be in my 60s, my 70s, and my 80s. And I think, like, I came up in a culture, right? Like, cannabis was part of the setting in which I existed, the environment that separated people who were free thinkers, who were cool, who were willing to go against the grain of society, and people that weren't. And I had an education as a very young person in elementary school and middle school specifically, where weed was made out to be evil, more or less. Like, it's a gateway drug at least. It will destroy your life at worst. But the depiction was that it happens instantaneously. Like, you smoke once or twice and 3 times, and now you're hooked. Now you're in this loop, and your life goes downhill very quickly. In high school and college, that's almost the exact opposite of what I found. Yes, absolutely, there were burnouts, there were stoners, there were people that didn't do shit with themselves, right? Or had no intention in terms of the future that they wanted to create. Absolutely, those people existed. The people that I sort of came up with, that I came into contact with cannabis through were the exact opposite. These were people who were hard workers. These were people that were willing to do things differently in order to obtain better results. And so at a very, in high school, towards the end of high school, right, my junior and senior years, now is the point where I'm smoking consistently every single weekend at least, probably multiple times a weekend. The people that I was hanging out with, my close friends, were people that were already in management at the age of 17 or 18, right? They were managing stores. They were managing aspects of their company. Most of those people are still doing very well today. And I think cannabis for them was sort of, at the time, you don't realize that it's a crutch, an escape. Hello, Panda Fang from Scotland. Good to see you. But it is sort of this mechanism that they were using to numb trauma that they were experiencing, which allowed them to ignore that trauma and move past it to do, great things at a young age. And like I said, most of those people are still doing very well. They're still in management at a young age. They are, they're making good money, right? I'm like I said, I'm 28 years old. Most of my friends in that age bracket, 27 to 30, are making 6 figures at this point. And so it's great for them. But I realize now later on that there was a lot of avoidance of mental health issues that they were utilizing cannabis for. And so there was this veil of coolness, edginess, but it was actually serving them in a particular way. So I appreciate the comment, Carrie Barron. I kind of look forward to that when I'm older, and that's sort of why I'm really trying to focus on managing this relationship that I have with cannabis now, because I want to be able to rediscover it when I've done the things that I wanted to do and I no longer feel burdened by it. So I'm curious, for those of you that are maybe 40s, 50s, 60s or older, is that something you can relate to? Next comment, I'm just reading the top comments down the list. So Signeg says, if you stop smoking for 3 to 6 months and only smoke once every couple of weeks, you'll see the difference of it being positive again. The problem is self-control from there. I always end up back at the same daily habit. Interesting. So I find this very interesting, this comment, because this sort of reflects a lot of what I hear from people. Hey, what up, Uriel? This is what this take is one that I find controversial, and I'm going to explain why. So this person is giving me advice, and they are saying, here is what happens if you smoke for 3 to 6 months, right? If you stop smoking for 3 to 6 months, you can then come back and you can moderate yourself, right? They finish the comment by sort of admitting that they're not able to moderate themselves. This is something that I have been struggling to accept, or this is part of why I'm doing what I'm doing, like recording the entirety of my experience, right? It's because I have this story in my mind where it's like, oh, I'm going to get to a place where it's easy for me to moderate. But I read the comments from people who suggest moderation, and then a lot of those same people sort of admit that they are not able to moderate at all. And then a lot of the comments from people that have effectively, at least claim to have effectively quit for good, one of the things that they always say is moderation is impossible. And I will admit, over the last few weeks, or the last week specifically, if you've been watching my video, the videos that I've been putting out, is like, I will say, hey, I'm going to try to moderate in this particular situation, and then boom, not able to do it. We have a couple comments here. 30 years of weed is the brain of my life, zero self-control. 30 years weed is the bane of my life, zero self-control. Yeah, there you go, Panda Fang. I feel that. Panda Fang says, I'm 30, I've smoked for 10. So you started when you were 20? Okay, yeah, I started smoking when I was like 15, and then smoking consistently when I was 17 or 18. And so 10 years, about the same for me. Uriel says, I feel that way, and it is overwhelming to know it. Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things that I'm sort of struggling with is like the awareness that there's a bigger life change than I've perhaps been willing to make thus far. But hey, that's why I'm making all these videos, and y'all are really helping me out quite a lot. I've moderated more than I've ever moderated since I was 17 without going to a different location. That's been one of my tricks over the years, is like straight up leave. Go to a different state, go to a different country, and tell yourself you're not going to be smoking when you get there. Jacob says, I was a daily user for 7 years. The last few years I would smoke and tell myself I'm going to quit. Then I would get high again and repeat the cycle. Yes, so common. Like when you're high, you want to smoke, and then, when you're sober, you want to smoke and get high. When you smoke and get high, you're like, I would do anything to be sober right now. Constant loop. They say when I was high, I wouldn't want to be high. Yup. And when I was sober, I'd want to be high. That's what I'm saying. It really was a mental prison. I quit from September to January this year and smoked again, saying I would do it moderately. That turned into 2 joints a day for 2 weeks. I realized I can't do moderation. It's hard because through my addiction, I got married, bought a house, and stayed employed. The cravings are real, and I try to convince myself that I can do it just once in a while. But that always spirals into daily use. Praying I can stay sober for good this time. Thank you for your insights. Hey, Jacob, appreciate you for the comment. Phenomenal comment. And I relate to this so incredibly much. TC is relating to it too. They're saying that's exactly where I'm at. It's the loop. That's it. And so this is something that I've seen with a lot of people, and especially the people that I have experienced in my life that reject so deeply. And you will see some of these comments that so deeply reject the idea that you can be addicted to weed, that it can fundamentally change who you are. You create a life as a person that you will not be when you stop. And I think a lot of people have that fear, and I sort of had that fear. And, I see this from a lot of people that are, like I mentioned, a lot of my friends from high school that are very successful now. There's like this deep fear of giving up weed because of how incredibly important that it has become for who they believe themselves to be and the reality that they've created for themselves. So yeah, this idea that you got married, you bought a house, all well, you were being the person that was reliant on cannabis. What do you do when you stop relying on cannabis, right? The answer from me is I don't know. I haven't been able to do it yet, so I don't know what happens. But I think that this is really, it's easy to feel this way that this is, coming back to the idea of addiction. How could cannabis not be addictive, right? THC is so incredibly impactful on your dopamine and your serotonin systems, right? Your receptors, such that you develop a chemical dependency on THC in order to produce dopamine and serotonin to the same degree. It might just be dopamine. I don't know. I might be, misinforming you guys when it comes to serotonin, but I feel this, right? And the withdrawal symptoms are real, right? It does create a lot of irritability. It does create significant exhaustion. But it's like I am only now experiencing that loop again because I'm trying to stop smoking weed, right? And when I'm able to moderate and I'm able to hold myself off from smoking for a night, smoking for 2 nights, right? That was when I made that video the other day, kind of talking about my friends so I live in Pennsylvania right now, but my family lives in Maryland, Central Maryland, and all my buddies from home are from that same area. And so I went back to visit, and I told myself I'm going to try to moderate. Lo and behold, I end up smoking every single night, and earlier than I'd been smoking. So when I was here and I was trying to moderate, like I was smoking like every 3 days or something, and like after 10 p.m. And it was crazy. I was rediscovering the creativity and the excitement and like the ability to be curious and act on that curiosity. And it was a lot of fun. And then I go home and it's like, boom, now all of a sudden I'm back to smoking every single night. I mean, luckily, thank God, knock on wood or whatever, like not smoking early in the morning, right? Not smoking in the middle of the day. That was huge. But going back to smoking every single night, I was just waking up every morning so fucking tired, exhausted, and I could feel like the weight of the THC in my blood almost. And so kind of going back and forth, is too difficult, right? And so that's one of those things that it was a nice reminder, right? It's a nice reminder that it doesn't feel great to do this all the time. And if I at least want to be able to enjoy cannabis once in a while, you have to moderate, or else you're stuck in this bubble. Basically, you're stuck in like this foggy snow globe that is your reality. It seems like the world is like really pressed up against you. And you can't think too far. You can't remember shit from the past. You can't future pace too much, because it's like, I don't know if I want to future pace as the version of myself that feels so crappy all the time. We got a couple comments in the live chat. Your attention is too easily exploited and you fall for any psyop when you're high every day. Totally. You operate like you have maximum ADHD with the shortest possible span of ability to apply that attention. It's not even the attention span itself. It's like the ability to apply the attention. That's why I talk about it. It feels like you're existing in a damn foggy snow globe. Sounds like Uriel agrees with me. Hey, shout out to you, Uriel. Sotomayor, great last name. Love that. TC says, Zach, I saw your video this morning and the lack of confidence you mentioned resonated so deeply with me. I feel so doubtful of myself and my abilities. Fuck yes, bro. Because the cannabis, it steals the energy from you. It steals your perceived ability to apply yourself. The lack of memory, the short attention span. Inevitably, you cannot be the best version of yourself. And I think one of the worst parts is that. And, I will talk about this as we dig deeper into some of these comments, but one of the things that I see so much from people that are deeply addicted is they are unwilling, right? It's like they almost stop imagining the future without weed. And maybe that's why I've remained so connected to attempting to quit for all these years, because I've never lost sight of the fact that, dog, this just isn't me. This is not who I really want to be. Not all the time, at least. Like I said, it's 3-4 times a week, late at night. Sure, maybe that's the max or the ideal that I have, because I do enjoy that sense of like tranquility, quietness, and my brain going a million miles an hour once in a while. That is enjoyable. I do enjoy that, but it burns you out if it's all the time. You lose the edge if you're high all the time, because you're just drained. You're just tired. And so that's one thing that I will never let that go. And I am making that claim right now. No matter how bad I backslide, no matter how bad I allow myself to sacrifice days, weeks, months, I don't think it'll be possible for me to lose sight of the reality that I just will never be the best version of myself if I'm smoking weed all the time. Even if I'm smoking weed every day, I just can't. It will not be possible. And so even if that's like, if that remains a punishment rather than an incentive, I don't mind, right? Because it's important to have that knowledge that you have what is important for you right now to transform your life, that your acres of diamonds are all around you. I'm a big fan of a lot of these new thought speakers, not necessarily ones on YouTube, but Russell Conwell, great book, Acres of Diamonds, and it talks about it's right now, right? You know what to change in order to become the best version of yourself. We got TC saying, yeah, it's hard. I don't want to give up forever. I've attached so many of my interests. I feel that, dog. I mean, I make music with my buddies. We rap. Probably looking at me, you're like, this white boy raps. Hell yeah, I do. And it's like the culture of rap and hip hop is so deeply tied to cannabis. And that's what I was saying the other night. I went back to Maryland and hung out with my buddies, and 3 nights in a row we smoked. And so I was like, Thursday, not going to smoke tonight. I just got wrapped up into it. We're freestyling. We're working on the instrumental, and then bada boom, bada bing. My buddy's rolling up. He starts smoking the blunt. It passes to me. No question. I hit it. We'll talk more about the narratives later, because I do want to talk about that. This idea that you make the decision before you even do it, and you're having this little battle inside your head. I'm curious if any of you guys can relate to that. That idea that like you actively do not want to smoke weed, and yet you have already decided that you are going to smoke weed. And so it's like your parasympathetic nervous system gets its relaxation, because it's like, oh, thank God, this outlet that we rely so heavily on, we are going to be able to access it. but then like your conscious voice, the voice that's like, hey, I'm thinking about your future, dude. I'm thinking about who I want you to be. And it's like, but I've already decided that I'm going to smoke, even if it's 45 minutes from now. Crazy. Your back pain says, hey man, I'm 16 years old and have been struggling with weed addiction for about 2 years. It's draining me more than anything. Do you have any advice to not relapse? The most I've been sober was a month. Hey, listen, your back pain, good for you, even for going for a month. You're asking a guy who's 12 years later in his life and is still really struggling, with weed. If I could go back to where I was, I mean, at 16 I was just starting out, and so it's like at 16 you're kind of realizing I don't want this, and so I admire that about you, man, or woman, or non-conforming person, whoever you may happen to be. The advice that I would have is try to find things that light you up. The things that have been most effective at keeping me off of smoking have been when I'm more excited to do something else, when there's something else that is more enticing. So right now for me, it's YouTube. Like I mentioned, I mean, if you guys have been in here, I've gone from 800 subscribers to like 2,100 subscribers in 2 weeks, thanks to the video that most of you are probably here because of, right? And maybe it's like an external thing, but I don't know. It's so invigorating for me to see these comments, you guys relating to me, you guys like, obviously the accolades are awesome, but more importantly, like the stories that you guys share, that's so motivating. And that is really given me something to look forward to and also hold me accountable, right? Of like, I don't think I'm going to keep doing this, because I don't want to let you guys down. Like, I don't want to have to come on here and be like, yeah, I smoked again, but I'm doing it anyway. Like I'm being honest because it's important, and I can kind of tell that means a lot to you guys. And so you guys responding means a lot to me, but this having something that really makes me having something that really makes me excited to show up and do is awesome. And, for a lot of the time for me, that's my business. So if you can find a way to make money that's different, that's not just showing up at a job or something, that helps. But interests, being outside, getting into mindfulness, meditation, reading, exercise, anything that you can be excited about that will really hook you and make you want to show up and make something for yourself. That helps, dog. That helps a lot. For me also, the number one rule for me going, and I know this might not apply for you as much at 16 because you probably don't have as much control over where you go physically. Like you probably can't really control where you live or like how you get around or anything like that. But going away, like if you've got some family you can go spend time with, maybe if your family has some work on their house or something, I don't know, some way that you can learn a skill or practice something while you're away. I've always just had this mental narrative, and this is sort of the last thing that I'll leave you with, your back pain, because I want to get on the next comment, but fuck, I lost my train of thought. Did I? I mean, really just going away. It all comes down to mental narratives. That's where I was going. We all have narratives within us that lead us to do literally everything that we do. So yes, addiction is a physical thing. We have a physical dependence, but we also have a story, right? And so if you smoke weed all the time, weed becomes something that you automatically rely on whenever you experience challenge. And I think that's one of the biggest ways that it fucks you over, is that you are not able to truly solve your problems at all, right? Like you smoke weed to numb the problem away, and it's like you kind of create, somebody just said it, physical addiction, exactly. You have a physical dependence on THC that whenever you feel like stress or tension, boom, the first thing your mind and your body say are, let's go score some bud and like roll up a joint or something. And so not only can you never end up solving your problems, I guess is where I'm going with this. And so the way that I have been able to most effectively deal with my weed addiction over the years has been, I have a story in my mind. I don't know where it came from, but I have stuck with it. And that story is every time I travel, I'm so sorry about the spitting, y'all. Just fucking talking a lot, I guess. Every time I travel, I smoke. Or sorry, every time I travel, I don't smoke. No matter what, I don't care if I'm going to California. I don't care if I'm going to freaking Jamaica. I do not smoke weed. And it's just a story that I had in my head. And so every time I've traveled, and I typically try to travel for like a month, 2 months at a time. I'm lucky because I work from my computer, sort of. I'm professionally and perpetually unemployed. But yeah, so whenever I travel, I have the freedom, number one, that I'm able to do that. And I think everybody does if they were to kind of really invest in that lifestyle. I am by no means rich. I say it in many of my videos. I am more broke than usual at this point in my life. But whenever I travel, I'm able to, tell myself, hey, I don't smoke. And so that might be one thing to work on is, I think ultimately all of it really comes down to mindset. It's really deeply about the conversation that you're having with yourself on a regular basis, but you can kind of try to set things like that. And maybe for you, since you're 16, it could be like, over the next 3 months, I'm trying to become super good at calisthenics. Like I want to be able to hit a muscle up. I want to be able to hit a plank or a planche. I want to be able to do a one-legged squat or a pistol squat. Over the next 3 months, I got to focus on that, so I'm just not going to be able to smoke. Tell yourself the story 500,000 times, and it will start to work out. And this is good for me to like say this to you because I'm like, how could I further incorporate that? But part of it is making these videos, right? I have the story that I'm making the videos. I can't show up and have to admit to you guys that I smoked. I don't want to have to do that. And so I'm not going to. I don't smoke weed anymore. So we'll see how that goes, but that's my advice. Your Back Pain says, thank you so much, dude. I've recently found interest in drums, so I'm going to put my time into that. Awesome. Even that little bit of support just gave me the rush of motivation. Absolutely, dude. Yes, I feel that. That is exactly what I'm doing here because you guys give me that. So it's my pleasure to give it back to you. Hit that subscribe button. I would be thrilled to see you around more often. That would really make my day. Next person says, bro, I'm chronic 35 years. We have a physical addiction. It's the dopamine deficiency. Absolutely. But we created that dopamine deficiency for ourselves. Yeah, Your Back Pain. Yo, I appreciate you so much for being here. Vasco says, I began in 1966 at 16 years old. You can moderate, but it's difficult not to overload. I haven't had a spliff in 2 years, but it does get old. But if there was a blunt here, I don't know. Yeah, I get that. Next person says, I'm 66 and I've smoked for 53 years. It saved my life when I was a kid because bad things happened to this pretty little girl. Okay. It helped me forget and move forward. I think I know what you're talking about. I was one of the very first women to drive semi-trucks in LA back in the late 70s. I've always I always twisted one up so I could smoke while working, drove 10 years and never had an accident. In my 40s, I moved to a town where I didn't know anyone. I was a single mom, so I went to university and earned a bachelor's of science in criminal justice. I'm old now, still pretty, with long blonde hair to my waist, weed, coffee, kiss my 7 dogs, and I'm ready for the day. And so I'm saying, for some people, it works. And, when I was in high school, when I was in college, one of my good friends, she was the top of her class. She was, I think, valedictorian or whatever for her class, which was one class above mine. But she was like one of the most popular people on campus. She was academically very achieved, incredible athlete, incredible singer. And she smoked like 3 blunts a day. I'm not even talking joints, dude. I'm talking about tobacco leaves rolled up with the weed inside. And she swore by it. She swore it just made her feel better. It made her feel balanced. You would never be able to tell this individual was high. There are people like that. Absolutely. Do I know where she's at with it now? No, she quit smoking weed actually. We met up in New York City back in 2021 and she had supposedly quit smoking weed. Same thing with my younger sister. My younger sister kind of swore by weed to a large degree throughout high school. But then just 2 years ago, she up and quit. And she was like, I just didn't like the way it made me feel anymore. It's interesting, right? It's like people who find the most benefit are those the same people who are able to immediately let go. But it sounds like Sunshine, Arizona here is saying she's been smoking for her whole life and she's not going to stop. And it makes her feel better. And she's, and that's the thing. If you never question it, cool. Like if that's how it makes you feel, you never have like a tenuous relationship with cannabis. I'm not here to say that's good or bad or whatever. It just is what it is. And I'm happy for you. I'm glad to hear about your experience. It's just not my experience. The Grubber says, I just smoked the Babats. Don't know what the fuck that means, but hey, good shit, buddy. Surveyahua is a verified music artist on YouTube who says, I'm all for positivity, man. Being sober is a superpower. Cool. That's one of the most upvoted comments. Somebody else says, I am of that 8% that can never truly moderate. It always creeps back up to chronic use. I have found that to be the case myself. I smoked straight with no breaks for decades. The anxiety and the stress as a result was horrible. Interesting. I felt like I was moving through soup. Fuck yes, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Like it feels like you're kind of in this snow globe or something. Whether stoned or not, my sleep was awful. Deprived of years of REM. Yes, you are deprived of years of REM sleep. My ability to think and solve problems was severely impaired. I lived in a privately defined world, wasting time, lost in thought, and my life revolved around its use. My priority was to always make sure I had a stash. I smoked through my 12 years of marriage. I'm 90 days clean now, and the withdrawal was misery. That 80-day hellscape was the first large chunk working itself out of my system is done, thank God, and I feel better. I don't miss weed or that way of life. I actually have a clean house now. That's huge. I mean, what else is there to add? That's deep. That's a powerful personal admission, and I respect that a lot. Yeah, I can relate to every single aspect of this, right? Like the sleep deprivation is real. Like you can get as much sleep as you want, and you're still tired when you wake up, and it might be because of lack of REM sleep, but I think like a collapsed memory has a lot to do with REM. I believe REM state is when your brain is also processing memories. And so, yeah, I feel that to an extreme degree. Like I feel like my short-term and long-term memory are deeply affected. I do political debates on a regular basis on TikTok, and sometimes my brain just goes blank. And I'm like, well, there you go. There's the effects of cannabis. And it happens regularly. Constantly looking for stash. For those of you that smoke weed, like you know how that feels. Like when you're out and you're just desperate to find it anywhere. Like I've dug around under my porch to find roaches. That's how bad it's gotten for me. And those are the moments like after you smoke, after having gone through something like that, you're like, this is fucked up. Like this is sad, really. Like I can't believe I've ended up at this point for myself, that I'm just digging around trying to find dope out of the fucking ground, dude. Crazy. So it sounds like they're saying they went through a long cleanse period, 80 days. Interesting. It was a hellscape. Personally, it's interesting that when I have ended up quitting or tried to quit and spent long periods of time away from cannabis, I don't really notice it that much. Like I do notice a degree of irritability, but it feels very chemical. It's like I can acknowledge that this is irritability based on that, that I just don't have weed that I rely on. I'm not sure what else to address with this comment because I relate to so much of it, and I'm proud of this person for having been able to quit. Yeah, I mean, I do wonder if I had gotten to a point where I was like, if years had gone by where I woke up and smoked in the middle of the day, that has only been the last year for me, really, that I was like smoking 4 or 5 times a day. And maybe that's kind of what brought me to that point where it was like, I just feel out of control. Right. And where once I sort of had this conversation with myself every morning of like waking up, because I was so, waking up so tired having smoked the night before. I'm like, are we gonna move past this? Because this kind of sucks. It's like I moved into a place where I was just high all the time and I was perpetually sleep deprived. And so I never really felt deeply tired, but I never felt rested, right? I always felt kind of perpetually tired. Next person says, I started when I was 20, smoked all day every day for 20 years, told myself that 20 years is good. Stop smoking this year. January and February really sucked, but after those 2 months, I started feeling stronger. I work out more, I get things done faster and more efficiently. I also find the delay in gratification of working hard to be much more rewarding. All in all, I feel proud of myself. I was trying to stop for 3 years before I did this year. Everyone said that there is something different about me. It feels good. The last 3 weeks of soberness was a hellhole. I definitely got weed sick because my body was begging me for it. Glad I won the battle. Life is better. I do miss it, but I'm never going to go back. It was a good run, Mary Jane, but I have to let you go so I can be free. Interesting. Yeah. Heard that. And so this is another comment that makes me wonder, like, maybe this is the ideal time for me to quit so I don't go another 10 years and just experience this absolute hell trying to get off it. Heartfelt Gesture says, I quit weed. I loved weed. It made me feel, I made good music on weed. It was hard to stop, but I wanted to, so I did. I'm healthier, clearer. I like that. I really appreciate when people are like, I wanted to do something, and so I did it. And that's the justification. It's like, I wanted to change. And that enough, that alone was good enough to get me to really move on. Vasco says, I've smoked weed all my life. At work, no one ever knew. I used to stop when the stone began to not work anymore. Usually every 2 or 5 years. I think self-regulation for some is easy, others not. Absolutely. A Burrito says, gave my stash to my brother yesterday. Yeah, I mean, most people I know that smoke regularly, like, I don't know if it's that nobody knows. I think most people don't actually care that much, assuming that you get the work done. I think yeah, I mean, yeah, that's tough. I mean, I get that. And most people that I know that smoke weed regularly, I would assume that other people just don't really have any idea. But some people might. I don't know, but it's like, at the end of the day, it's up to you, right? Burrito says, gave my stash to my brother. Recuperation 420 says, my problem is that nightmares and dreams never stop when I quit, even 6 months. Yeah, I mean, I've been having nightmares again, which is crazy. But I don't know. I think dreams and nightmares, and I'll make a video on this if you guys want, because I used to be really big into like lucid dreaming and astral projection and these kinds of things. I believe that dreams tell you a lot about yourself, right? And if you can start to have a more connected relationship with your dreams, you can really use them to benefit you a lot. You can grow so much from what you learn in your dreams. But of course, you do have to go through the pain of the moment of being, terrorized in a dream. And so I'll make a video on that in the future if you guys want. But what I would say to you, recuperation, is don't give up because of the dreams, dog. Like, don't make it something that scares you back into a version of yourself that fundamentally is not the best version of yourself, right? Because those dreams are trying to give you, they're trying to give you information about yourself. But you got this. Somebody else said, Drew says, I haven't smoked in a month and a half after everyday use for a couple of years. Some breaks in between. I'm missing it a lot and want to reincorporate it in the weekends. That's how I feel, Drew. It's like when I go for a while without it, it's like, weed wasn't that bad. I could do this. And then, the other week when I was making these videos and trying to actively moderate myself, I was smoking like every other night. And it was awesome. It was like I rediscovered my relationship with it. What I have found, though, is it's so easy to return to chronic use. I mean, if you've been addicted to weed, your ability to moderate, I'm like, is it really possible? Because I read a lot of these comments of people that have ultimately ended up quitting for good, and they're like, you always come back to regular dependency, right? You always come back to chronic use and chronic overuse, abuse, right? And so I don't know if I'm able to really accept that there is a reincorporation that's able to happen. I mean, I'm proud of myself for cutting back as much as I've cut back. I hated the way I felt smoking weed all day. That just feels like absolute shit. But it's still, when I went back to Maryland and I was smoking every evening, that still didn't feel very good. So I don't know. You guys will be on this journey with me. On day 7 right now, kind of crazy. I just found your channel. Hey, what up, Olaf? Hey, man, I'm glad you're here. Recuperation says been smoking for the last 3 years. The next person says, I smoke for a month and then stop for a month so I can get a good high and recover for a bit. I got a buddy he follows that rule and it works for him. And I'm amazed that it works for him. The amount of self-control that takes to be able to be like, I am not going to smoke for a month so that I get a great high after. That's interesting. I feel like you could do anything with your life if you have that much self-control. Olaf says, I'm just doing a month because I've only been smoking for a couple years, but I think I've been addicted for most of those years. Going to attempt moderation after this month 3 times. Yeah, 3 times a week. Yeah, I feel that, dude. And if you've got to set yourself up, maybe that works. That hasn't really worked for me so much to be like, I'm going to do it tomorrow. I feel like every time I've been like, I'm going to do it tomorrow, I never end up doing it. And that was where these videos came from. That's why, for those of you that watch the video 10 plus years of weed addiction, which is what I'm reading the comments from, that was what happened that day. Was I was just like tired from smoking, and I just happened to not be high at this particular moment in the day. And I was like, I'm just going to make a video talking about how I feel, because I never see that shit. I've never fucking seen anybody on YouTube be like, here's what I'm going through, here's how it feels. Like, yeah, if you've got cancer or something that you didn't choose, and you're like, your life is kind of falling through your fingers. Like, I've seen a lot of that, but I've never seen somebody be like, I'm an alcoholic, and here's how it feels to be an alcoholic. Here's how it feels to be, a meth addict or something. Even just smoking weed, I've literally never seen somebody be like, here's how it feels in the throes of the addiction. And that's what inspired me to make the video, and that helped me ultimately start making more videos, and the feedback that you guys have given me has really helped me be like, you know what? I'm going to try to hold myself more accountable to this. And this is the best that I've done in a really long time. Metalhead says, I'm 62, just got clean 64 days ago from weed and alcohol. Interesting. So you are kind of in that bracket that a lot of people are saying, hey, these are the golden years of use. Sounds like Metalhead has the opposite story. Weed did get bad for me. Did the opposite of what I was hoping it would do. I used it for chronic pain. I ended up hurting worse. Interesting. Very interesting. I'd be curious how, to talk more about that idea of physical pain, because I have experienced something very similar. I was struggling with back pain for a long time, and I was doing all of these practices, and yet I felt like, on one hand, it's like the cannabis allowed me to go deeper on a lot of these feelings and open myself up and kind of release from a lot of the tension. And yet at the same time, it caused me to be so focused on it. Like, I couldn't get away from it, and I was tense in many other areas too. Drew Sauce says, would you say it's that I've only been smoking for 3 to 4 years, mostly nightly with breaks in between? I'd be able to moderate by smoking on the weekends. I think it might be easier for you, Drew. Like, moderation has helped me so much, dude. I mean, and I say, I struggle with this addiction, and I say that I've got a dependence. But I notice just how much worse that dependence gets the more that I smoke, right? And so, like, the more I've cut back, the easier it is for me to cut back. And simultaneously, vice versa, right? The more I smoke, the harder it is for me not to smoke, right? For me, if I smoke in the beginning of the day, or if I smoke at like 12 or 1 p.m. or something, the come down from that high is exhausting. And it's like, to smoke more relieves the pain. I would call it pain, right? It's like physical pain of coming off of weed. Smoking more helps to avoid that pain. And so I would say that the more you can moderate, the easier it will be to moderate. Brent B Dawn says, how long you got? I don't know what the hell that means. You mean how long? I've been live for 43 minutes. I have been sober since 2 days ago. So whatever, not long, buddy. Not long either way. Vasco says, once dependent, it's very difficult to completely stop. Irreversibly and inevitably, when I do start up again, I tend to overuse. This has been happening for decades. Absolutely. They say, I think if you can stop, what did they say? Like, they're basically saying, I think if you can stop completely, that's the best. I've been watching your vids. I have a recovery channel, weed oriented too, but it's in Spanish for Latin Americans. I love that. Great. I'm really happy to hear that recuperation. I just watched one of your videos and really appreciate what you said about weed psychedelic effects. Don't hear many people talking about that, but I feel like it's important. Yeah, absolutely. So weed is not technically a psychedelic, and I misspoke in that video. It's a psychoactive. but to consume too much of it does in fact provide psychedelic effects. I think my point with that was just how much it rewires your brain that a lot of people don't acknowledge. But it's ironic to me that the people that are like, they scream from the rooftops that it's not addictive are the people that are the most addictive. That they are the most addicted. It's just that they are almost totally unwilling to acknowledge it. Don't hear many people. Yeah. Thank you, man. Thank you, Olaf. Appreciate that. Stinky Bug Boy. Love it. Stinky Big Boy. Great name. I'm 5 days into quitting weed for a drug test for electrician school. I didn't realize how unsatisfied I was with my life until I stopped. It's pretty shitty so far, but your videos have helped me. They've helped give me a new perspective that it might really be helpful for me to stop just for a while, as part of feeling bad isn't just withdrawals. It's unhappy with myself in general. Dude, facts, bro. Like, and then they go on to say, and that weed has just been masking that to a degree. Yeah, I mean, I think that's 100% of what it is. Like, when you're addicted to anything, the addiction serves as your problem-solving mechanism. So I'll give you an example. Like, when it comes to technical stuff, so with my business, whenever it comes to like setting something up for email or some kind of automation or something, I find that shit so goddamn frustrating. And it's good challenge. Like, it's something to learn about, right? You are learning, you are growing, you are expanding your capabilities. And yet the first fucking things that I ever want to do whenever I experience the slightest degree of challenge, right, is I want to smoke. I want to roll up a joint. And so often I convince myself that will, like, being high and trying to do the challenge will make it easier or help me. It's never that way. It's like now I'm just high and I become more tense over time. But I've created that feedback mechanism so it's like physically I do feel a sense of relief, but only for the craving of the weed, not the actual overcoming of the challenge. And if I do end up overcoming the challenge, it takes me way longer. It's so much more effort intensive because my brain is not as functional as it otherwise could be. So I 100% resonate with that idea of like masking the pain, masking the challenge, that yes, you absolutely were struggling, right? You did have these self-doubts, this lack of self-confidence, this sense of low self-worth. It was just that it was masked, right? You were numb. And that's what cannabis does. It numbs you out. It causes you to ignore the trauma. And that's why, a lot of people in the first few years of smoking, from what I've seen, people that are destined to have the ability to create great things. I mean, like ADHD or autism, I tend to find are really good indicators of these kinds of people. You have this within you, right? And it's like, most of us, it's trauma that we have to overcome the trauma in order to become the next layer of ourselves. Cannabis or other drugs, you see it all the time with uppers, bro. Opiates are hugely responsible for this kind of thing, where you start smoking weed or you start doing meth or whatever it is, and you hit a new level in your life, right? Because all of the trauma that you needed to get past in order to get to that level, that your conscious mind was like, let's process this, or maybe your subconscious mind asked you to process it, it no longer exists for a short period of time. But that's just it. It's a short period of time. Long term, it just leads to numbness. Sammy says, new to your channel, and really proud of you and excited for your journey. Me and my partner found everything you were saying in your videos. Hey, thank you for watching this video with somebody else or my other videos. We both hit the year mark sober after years. Hey, Sammy, I really appreciate you being here. You're further along than I am, so that means a lot to me. Metalhead says, first started smoking weed at 10, became a junkie by 17, got clean by 27, stayed clean for 23 years, relapsed weed and alcohol. And you know what? You're a human being, and it be that way. And I appreciate you being here because I think all of these perspectives are so important, right? I know a lot of us are sitting in this chat, myself included, being like, how can we moderate so we can keep weed? But maybe that's not how that shit works. And that's part of what I'm doing here is to, appreciate the journeys that y'all are on. I have a bunch of followers, but I do relapse and have had to say it publicly. Dude, that's important. I mean, that's 90% of what I am doing here in this live on these videos on my channel in general is just that I have to come clean about the narratives that I have. And that's a really important one, like I shared from the other day, that as I was getting in the car and going to my buddy's house, having recorded a video earlier in the day saying I was not going to smoke any weed today, I felt it. I got in the car and I'm driving, and it's like the concrete narrative is I'm going to smoke. Even though my conscious mind is like, what are you doing? You just said you weren't going to smoke. Why don't you say right now that you're not going to smoke? Why don't you reform your brain and reform your narrative right now before you go over to a place where you're saying you're going to smoke? And it's like, nah, I'm just going to smoke. That's crazy. That's fucking insane. And so I think that's part of why I make these videos is to have to at least come back and be like, this is what happened. This is the way that I feel. This is how I felt. This is the narrative that was going on in my mind. There was an adjacent narrative happening at the exact same time, and I still chose the weed. What the fuck, So anyway, that's what we're doing here. Phil says, great video, bro. Hey, thank you, Philip. Appreciate you, man. Recuperation says, started at 16, became chronic immediately, been smoking all life till a few years ago when I stayed sober for periods, but I can't get past 5 months. I mean, 5 months is impressive. What I would say is do it over and over and over again. Get to 5 months, smoke, do 5 months again the next day. And that's what I've kind of been trying to do is like, even if I do smoke, I'm starting over again, right? The points in my life when I think I've been the most proud of myself, it's not that I wasn't smoking weed. It was that I was consistently trying not to smoke weed. And I never lost sight of that I want to stop. Even if I tell myself I want to stop, later in the day I smoke. It's like when I'm in that mindset in general in my life on a macro level, the second that I smoke weed, I'm like, what the fuck did I do? I don't want to be high. But it's because I rebalanced my brain, right? I gave my brain the dopamine that it was craving, and then I was able to think rationally again. But I've still been proud of myself because I've maintained the desire. Like, I've maintained the intention. And those are the periods where I tend to experience the most growth. It's not the periods where I kind of just give up. I throw in the towel and I just allow myself to smoke as much as I want. Josh says, what do you think about CBD as an alternative? I've actually had a few people that have said that to me. Like, why don't you try to use CBD? I've smoked CBD a few times, and I won't lie, it feels good, and it doesn't get you high. It just kind of like this physical mellowing feeling. I would consider that. One thing that I've read and I've watched videos from people that have talked about this is the idea of the ritual, right? So smoking weed is like it's a ritual. Right? You sit down, you grind up your herb, whether you roll something up, whether you pack it into your bowl. It's a ritual. It feels good to go through the ritual. And so I've heard a few people talk about how use something else for the short term, right? Whether it's like some other like smokable herbs, whether it's like lavender and mint or whatever, whether it's CBD, right? That's a very good suggestion. Because it's funny that I've seen the ritual beat a lot of people. Like, they quit weed, but then they go to cigarettes. That's a really common one is people quit whatever it is. They quit the benzos, they quit the alcohol, they quit the weed, but then they go to cigarettes. And I think for a lot of people, it is the ritual, like sitting in a place and breathing in and out, right? That's what you're doing. It's like a meditative practice that also just happens to be really bad for you. So the CBD thing's a very good suggestion. Sorry about the nose, y'all. My nose is like sensitive for some reason. Vasco says, we learn from each other. This talk is so valid because everyone's weed experience has similarities and differences. Therein wisdom is shared. Dude, that is exactly what I'm doing here, Vasco. Just trying to be authentic, just trying to tell you guys how what my experience is and resonate with yours, and, find areas where we contrast, and it is what it is. View says, I like a couple of your videos. I saw him 19 for the first time a few months ago before smoking and asked why I'm doing this. All I can say is I'm addicted. Being willing to admit that you're addicted is important, because a lot of people just will not admit that they're addicted, and it's not helpful, right? Like, it doesn't make you tough. It doesn't make you cool. It doesn't make you anything. A lot of us came up in a culture that heavily glorifies weed, right? We've swung back in the other direction. I know in the 50s, 60s, 70s, that kind of thing, like, it was so demonized, and oh God, weed's gonna turn you into a gay Mexican frog or something. And, everybody knew that wasn't true, but the fear mongering created a stigma that I believe my generation swung back the other direction. It was like, dude, weed's awesome. It's great. Nothing's wrong with weed. Everything's perfect in weed world. And that's not really the case either. It's not going to kill you immediately. Weed is not going to inherently make you a degenerate, but it is going to bring out the tiredness in you. It is going to crush your motivation over time. And these are the real dangers of weed, right? It's stealing you from a future that you could have had. Sammy says the voice doesn't completely disappear, even at a year. There's a stressful times where the brain goes, wouldn't mind a smoke right now. Absolutely. Hear that, Sammy. I want to see what Sammy's second comment was, because knowing the reasons for quitting is usually by far so much stronger than the fleeting would be nice. Yes, and that's what I'm relating to over the last couple days and weeks is like, it is like, I do have that at night where I'm like, it would be nice to just smoke. And sometimes I give into it and I do it. And yet what feels the best to me is when I don't do it. It is when I'm able to win that little mental conversation. And when I conclusively have decided that no, I will not be smoking, that feeling is like, oh my God, man, that's awesome. Like that feels so good. I feel so empowered. So I really appreciate that comment, Sammy. Proba says, I'm never quitting weed and cigarettes. Sorry. Hey, feel that, buddy. Let's see. Olaf says, how would you say weed feels? I always joke about how I've smoked weed every day for years and I still struggle to explain what it does. Like obviously it can chill you out or whatever, but it always, Olaf said, made my mind feel different. I like weed, even got trippier, even I did a bunch of psychedelics in college too, which is a whole other thing. Yeah, so, hey, Lauren Olivia, what up, Lauren Olivia? And thank you for your comments on my videos, Lauren. I totally relate to, what you were talking about on my one video that you commented on. But Olaf, I mean, to answer your question about how it feels, it totally depends on when. So if I smoke all the time, if I'm high all day, every day, it doesn't feel like it. All it feels like is a release of tension. So if I'm chronically high, the only reason I smoke weed again is to relieve the tension, right? The coming down from weed, it physically feels like I have a bar. My body is full of THC. And then as my THC bar goes down, the tension starts to build. And then the lower my THC bar is going, the more like I'm building physical tension. I smoke, THC bar is back up, I'm not physically tense anymore. Now, there are other things. It's like a grogginess. It's like you're kind of in this like hazy dream. And it's like it feels good, but not if you get up and move around a lot. Like there's a lot of physical movement. Like I have worked out while high. I used to work out high all the time, and that does feel good, but it's a short window. You got to use it or lose it, because you're not going to smoke and then like the vibe goes down, and then the vibe goes down after like 2 or 3 hours, and you're like, oh, man, I better go hit the gym. That fucking never happens. That never happens to me, at least. So that's how I would say it feels. How I would say it feels when somebody asked what strain I smoked 2 days ago. I literally hate that I have this. Boom. Sour diesel. Can you guys see that? Boom. Yeah. So I bought this from a little dispo. It was my buddy's birthday. That was my excuse to go smoke with him back in Maryland. And I went to this little dispo and bought like this absurdly expensive sour diesel. It's like, dispos are insane. That's another great reason to quit, is just legalized weed it's made things too expensive. But I, a white person, am not going to be commenting on that. So how does weed make you feel when you're not high? For me, if I'm like truly sober, when I smoke weed, it feels like this massive rush. It feels like, boom, you enter a dream. It feels like my mind is moving 1,000,000 miles an hour, but I can track all of it, and it's all giving me like these insane insights. Sounds like you've done psychedelics. That's why I call it a psychedelic experience, because weed to me is like a very mild trip, right? For me, weed is like the getting high from being sober is like the intro to doing acid. So if you've ever done acid, it's like the first few minutes of feeling the acid come on. Weed's kind of like that, a little less physical, like a little less nauseating. If you ever done acid, like acid can make you nauseous as fuck. And so weed's like none of that. It's just like, wow, I'm in the dream world. Wow, everything's really colorful and exciting and interesting. But that's only when you don't smoke a lot. If you're smoking weed all the time, if you're, a chronic user, it's more like you're just satisfying the tension. So I don't know if you relate to that. And Emil says, I feel like I'm in the exact same situation as you. Hey, Emil, I appreciate you being here, man. Vasco says, these past 2 years I've been clean. Sometimes I really want to smoke and it lasts, but it just passes and I'm okay. Awesome, Vasco. Yeah, I appreciate that. Real stoners prefer perma-stoned. Yeah, when my THC bar goes down, I get super stoned. I'm kind of paranoid, but perma-stoned, I don't feel anything. Yeah, that's a great point, right? Like, people talk about, they're like, I quit because of the anxiety and this and that. I'm like, I relate to that a lot. And yet it's so interesting that they quit smoking weed because of that. Because for me, the anxiety was, it like physicalized anxiety that I was already experiencing, right? Anxiety that I felt like I already had. And so I smoked and then I would feel the anxiety, but it was almost like I was giving my body and my mind an excuse to finally truly understand what I was feeling on a regular basis. And so I relate to your comment a lot where you're like, perma-stoned is different, because it totally is. When you're sober and you get really high, absolutely your mind's running a million miles an hour. Very easy to get paranoid, especially if you don't smoke a lot or it's new to you or whatever it is. But when you are high all the time, like I no longer experience anxiety like that. I mean, I talk to people on the phone, I'll go places. When I'm high, I put on an act, and I think it's because I grew up, I was a kid smoking weed. So I kind of came up in an environment where it was not okay at all to be high. But then now that I've been smoking for 10 years plus of my adult life, I don't fear somebody being like, oh, what, you're high? I'm like, don't challenge me. I'll do whatever I want in public, right? I'll be who I want to be. But I still kind of put on this act that repels people. Like I try to make myself look angry or unhappy or whatever it is. But I also sort of have an attitude with it of just like, I'm a, whatever. I don't know, like a gangster or like a tough guy or whatever it is, but nobody's going to call me out for being high. Like I kind of have that attitude about it. So I don't really experience the anxiety, but it might be that it's just like a deeper, like true anxiety, right? It's like I am anxious and scared, and cannabis is, causing me not to be able to regulate deep senses of fear about my future or the state of my life. It's not so much being caught or, somebody telling me like I'm not doing a good thing. I don't know if any of this makes any sense. I'm going to drill like 3 more of these comments in the actual video, and then I'll jump back to the chat, and then we'll go from there. Somebody said, I quit weed. I love weed. Oh, that was this one. I'm healthier, clearer. Proper sleep is possible without weed, if that's the excuse. Yeah, weed was never really something that I used to fall asleep. In fact, weed sort of prevented me from sleeping. When I would smoke weed, my brain would just be so active and excited and like, not impossible to sleep, but I would like lie down and my brain would just be going a million miles an hour. Joe says, I've been smoking since I was 12, 56 now, and it never gets old. It gets me in a good mood. I get motivated to create things. Weed has never done me wrong in any way. Interesting. Hey, fair enough. Can't relate to that. But like we've said, there are many people that can. Bob says, the herb tricked me and had me utterly convinced that I was messed up before I started smoking. In reality, I got so much worse on it, and I couldn't see how bad it really was. Yeah, weed numbs you out, and it doesn't just numb you out in the moment. It numbs you out in terms of your entire life. All your goals, all of your perceptions of yourself, the people in your life. It numbs everything. Ganon Gart says, I'm 20 years old, struggling with pot for 7 years of chronic use. This video is completely inspiring. I'm down to about 2 J's a day. The dependency is still kicking in, but getting there. Love to hear someone is shedding light on how damaging chronic use can be. I think it's going to be spoken a lot more. Yeah, I hope so. And I am seeing, studies come out to talk about how it affects your brain over time. But I think this is part of the danger of so heavily stigmatizing drugs too, because you create a narrative that a drug is like terribly bad. And then when people use it and they're like, this isn't bad at all, like you can't actually give them real information because you've been so busy fear mongering in a way that's like objectively false, right? And so you get to a point where people legitimately need help, and the only help you have to offer them is like, Satan did this or something just totally extreme that is useless as far as advice. So yeah, I relate to that. I do think in the next few years it will be spoken about more realistically. Joseph says, hey man, thank you. I just randomly clicked on this topic. It's been lingering on my mind. Thank you for being relatable and a safe space for us to speak on this topic. Absolutely. Whether you're a hater, whether you are super into it, I'm here for the opinions. We got a long ass comment. We haven't gotten any of the hate comments yet. God damn. There were so many really solid hate comments. Some people being like, I'm an absolute idiot or you know, I'm a failure. I don't understand. It's like, man, where are those comments? We got a long one here. Ecstatica says, we're going to go piece by piece. And this is going to be the last comment in the video because I know this video is getting long. We can do another stream like this if you guys want. I really appreciate you all watching. Ecstatica says, I've only watched 10 minutes of this video because I've got things to do, but I just wanted to throw this out there. Not a great start. Maybe addiction isn't really about the substance itself, but it's more about not being able to deal with your own issues. All right. I don't think I've ever heard someone who's addicted to anything and is genuinely happy with themselves or life in general. Okay, so first, this comment is like 7 paragraphs, so we're going to go through this one by one. Not a great opener. I've only watched 10 minutes of your video, but it's never great. But I kind of agree to a degree with this, that it's not about the substance, it's about not being able to deal with your own issues. Yes, but the substance creates another layer of being able to break through to those issues. If you have a problem dealing with your issues, but then you use a substance to mask that, or it becomes something that you depend on, you have to break through that second layer before you can break through the first layer, right? So the idea that I don't see someone who's genuinely happy, I agree with you. I don't think I am genuinely happy. I don't think any of the people that I know that are addicted to weed are genuinely happy. They not only are they not able to deal with their subconscious issues, they've created a chemical dependency which prevents them from even addressing the fact that they cannot deal with those issues. Also, everyone's different. Cannabis affects people differently. Absolutely. Some people use cannabis habitually but function fine, while others may develop dependency due to psychological issues. Do I think that that's true? So I struggle with being able to say, yeah, I believe that, right? That some people can use it habitually and function fine. I don't know if I believe that they're functioning fine. I believe that they are presenting more effectively. I believe that they are feigning, maybe not feigning actively, but at least subconsciously have a degree of masking that they are doing. But again, that's your life. I cannot comment on that. I can only comment on my experience. But what I've seen from the vast majority of people is that the dependency masks the psychological issues that you're talking about. And you cannot effectively address those psychological issues as long as you have the dependence. They go on to say, in your case, I think the bigger issue is that you started smoking so young, your brain is developing. Okay, so you're kind of addressing half of the truth. And anything you introduce at that stage is going to shape it. True. Cannabis can reinforce certain neural pathways, making habitual use more ingrained over time. You literally primed your brain that way. That is 100% true. And intent is huge. If you're using cannabis to relax, cool. But if you're using it for meditation, for processing trauma, or in a spiritual way, I genuinely believe cannabis is a powerful medicine that should be respected and used properly. I agree with everything here. I agree with this so much. Except if you're using it to relax, cool. Because if you are using it to relax, if you appreciate it as a contribution to your relaxation once in a while, those are the people that can actually, in my opinion, those are the people that can actually truly enjoy weed, right? They don't have an addiction to it. They're in an environment where it enhances the relaxation for a period of time, or, you know, for a modicum of that day, right? Not all the time, like barely even once in a while. Cool. I would say the same thing, but I would also say cool to the process, using it for meditation, for processing trauma in a spiritual way. It is a tool, and it should not be abused. If you can only obtain a deep meditation, or you can only process trauma with weed, are you actually processing that trauma, or are you just using a vehicle that allows you to start down that path but never truly manifest the actual fruits of that path? I think that's only for you to answer. Since you started so young, I can't really speak for your experience, but I'd say you're probably not addicted. You just don't want to quit. That's addiction, dude. Yeah. So that's where I disagree with what this user is saying, right? Their definition of addiction is not fleshed out enough. Once you rely on it to experience anything, if you're like, I need it for this, I need it for that, that's addiction, right? So for them to say, you're probably not addicted, you just don't want to quit. You're absolutely right, I don't want to quit, but it's probably because I'm addicted, right? And I associate so many feelings and kind of energetic environments with having a dependence on weed for that environment and that feeling. They say, for me, I didn't really start smoking about 10 years ago when I was in my 30s. I smoked it every day for about 5 years. I tried it a few times in high school on my own, but never with the intent to heal. Smoking with my friends, smoking alone, and smoking while meditating all gave me completely different experiences. I agree with that. Partly because I was in different stages of my life, absolutely. And I wasn't the same person at every stage. And that's kind of what I'm talking about is like, I enjoy weed much of the time, and I do not want to screw myself over if and when there are points in my life where I could have a moderate relationship with it. I don't want to ruin that. And so it's kind of hard for me to be like, well, I'll find the perfect moderation schedule. It's easier for me to visualize in my mind just being a person who does not rely on cannabis. That's not who I am right now. That's enough. That's enough of that comment. It's pretty much just keeps going from there. It's a tool. It's about how you use it. And I think they're trying to really hit on the fact that I started smoking so young, and that's kind of what affected all of this. That might be part of it, but I know plenty of people that start in their 20s or their 30s, and then they end up having the same degree of like negotiation with themselves. So I just haven't seen the validity in this comment. The next one, Gigagenesis says, everyday smoker since 18, 31 now. I'm also a medical doctor. Weed helped me out of suicidal depression caused by an existential crisis at 15 that lasted 5 agonizing years. It showed me what it feels like to be happy again. I had literally forgotten the feeling for years. The danger with weed is the same danger with anything that gives you instant dopamine surge. Yes, it is to turn your back on actually artificially live a risk-free life with the reward being handed to you. The definition of addiction in medicine has changed from just being dependent on something to being dependent on something, and the dependence has caused discord in your life, relationships, etc. Part of the objective, which is corroborated with your family, job situation, college, university performance, is subjective. That's the subjective part that's left up to you. That's absolutely true. But it's interesting that you say you're a medical doctor and yet you're like, objectively, you are not addicted, which is not true based on your own definition, right? So you're saying that not only do you have to have a chemical and physical dependence on something, you also have to have it cause discord in your life. Please cite the source for why that's addiction. Why would chemical dependence on its own not just be addiction? That doesn't make any sense. But then based on your definition, I am in fact addicted because it has absolutely affected my relationships. It has absolutely affected the work ethic that I've shown up with. I would wonder where my business would be had I never started smoking weed, or I didn't have a chemical dependence on weed. I wonder, would I have had the same narrative surrounding higher education? I went to school for 2 years full-time, 3 years part-time. I'm kind of still going part-time to a degree, but I kind of convinced myself to leave college. And I mean, I'm not saying I regret that decision, but I'm just wondering, would that have been different? But absolutely, in terms of my work, what I do for work, absolutely in terms of my relationships, all my close friends smoke weed. The people that don't smoke weed for fun, I barely spend any time with them anymore. And I think that's a big factor. So I'm not going to comment too much on what I think people are saying when they leave these comments that are like these deep analysis that kind of justify continuing to smoke weed. But I don't know. It doesn't seem that authentic. We'll read some more of these comments later. I'm going to hit some of more of the comments on the live stream, and then we're going to wrap it up for the day. So Let's see. We got Burrito says, I smoke and I never really feel good from it. I've been doing it for years trying to get that first high feeling. Dude, that's it. Like and especially when you're quitting, you are constantly trying to say like, okay, this will be the last joint. This will be the last blunt. After this one, I'm done. But I realized like if you have to do that, if you have to, every single time you have to be like, okay, this is the last time. There's a billion last times, right? I think sometimes you just have to stop. View says, is your personal goal to ultimately be content without weed and never touch it? Yeah, I would say that. Like it's to be content without it. Is it to never touch it? I don't know. I admittedly do like smoking once in a while. Like it feels fun, but that quickly devolves into like smoking all the time, and that sucks. Like it sucks to have to sit there and be like, I want to do this thing because it's fun and it feels good. But I actively know that this will probably be me returning to smoking every single day, which I absolutely do not want. So I don't know, View. I don't know my answer to that. But that's why I'm making these videos. Burrito says, I smoke and never feel good. It's been doing it for the years trying to get that. Oh, yeah, sorry, I just read that. The anxiety and guilt I get when I smoke again is crazy. That is interesting. I don't experience that so much. I mean, I do, and yet I know that it's chemical. So I do these debates on TikTok, and then I'll smoke. If I only smoke once in a while, like I'll smoke, and then I'll be like, man, I shouldn't have said this or I shouldn't have said that. Like I do have this degree of guilt, but I reason myself out of it, right? Like I give myself the leeway to be like, well, we're never going to be perfect. We're never going to say things perfectly, but you did respect this person. You didn't destroy this person's life. You didn't like talk trash about this person's physical appearance or something. So the guilt, I think the guilt's important. It's important to be a person that has a sense of empathy and takes accountability. But it's just like, how much does it control you? And I think I've been smoking for so long that I've realized that a lot of these are simply feelings, and I need to learn to navigate the feelings, right? And be kind with myself. Ozzy says, I'm 21, turning 22 in 8 days, smoking since 13. But when I turned 20, I got a house and started growing. To cut the story short, I had 4 grams a day for 10 months, and I'm stopping now. I'm here in California. Hey, good luck, Ozzy. I agree. I couldn't handle having practically infinitely quantity to the point where it basically ruined all my social relationships with my lady friends and parents. Yeah, I hear that. Local Fatty says, 3 days clean. I miss this deep sleep. Hey, good for you. I'm feeling that same thing, like real rest for the first time in a while. All right, we're going to read one last comment and we're going to wrap it up. Anna says, the most relatable real talk I've ever heard. Thank you for sharing. Much respect. I'm 26 and you've described my experience exactly, like so many people in the comments. What has helped me to get to the point of being able to be sober for weeks, even months, is emphasizing my time sober versus focusing on not being high. I've always said that I don't want to stop smoking completely too, but giving myself months sober after going 6+ years of daily smoking has helped me integrate weed back into more reasonably and medicinally. Let's see how that goes. Not daily or even weekly. Cultivating a sober connection to the spirit has also helped me to find enlightenment, and I was always seeking in weed, which went away after chronic use. Hope this helps. Thanks again. Absolutely, it helps, and I relate to that so much. I don't think with chronic use you can find any of the spiritual, the meditative, any of that. And it's funny because there's a person that I'm thinking of right now, a close buddy of mine, who claims to be a really spiritual person, and yet I think that it's holding him back. Yeah, I think it's like it's caused him not to think deeply about this stuff. It's caused him to kind of take for granted that he's a spiritual person, like because of drugs, and then he's gotten so far away from like what it really means to be spiritual. I mean, the guy, he can't take accountability for himself. He can't take constructive criticism. Like, he makes music and he can't hear constructive criticism. And I'm going to be open. Like, his music is not good. And he will not hear advice and change. He'll make any type of way to get around it. Riding with the guy in the car is terrifying. Like, he has no ability to police himself as far as his emotions and not reacting to people. And if you drive in America, you already know, man, U.S. drivers are insane. You gotta have thick skin, but you also have to be patient and not react to people, because you can't go getting in fights with everybody. And so this is a person that claims to be deeply spiritual and deeply connected with spirit, but it's like he relies entirely on the psychoactive change in his brain from drugs. That's what he considers to be spiritual. And I will say at one point he was deeply spiritual, but that's gone away as like, you know, psychedelics and particularly cannabis have really numbed him out. So yeah, I don't, you know, people can say what they want, but from the experience that I've had, you really just cannot be as truly spiritual as you want. Let's see. Any other comments? I'm from Brazil. War on drugs here is aluminum hat level. Hey man, that's the U.S. used to be like that. Any last comments from people? We'll probably smoke again in 6 months from now. I hear that, man. Surprisingly valid experience. Thank you, Zach, and everyone else. Absolutely. Thank you, Vasco. Thank you, Burrito. Thank you, everybody here. Thank you, everybody watching at home who's going to watch this later. Giga James says, I'm 14 and smoke weed. Any advice? Oh, Recuperation asked how I can contact you. Okay, Giga James, I'm going to leave you. You're going to be the last comment. How can you contact me? All my socials and everything are on my channel. My email is also on my channel. Drop a comment. I'll give you my personal email right now. My personal email is Z as in Zach, A as in Apple, V as in Victor, O as in Octopus, Y as in Yellow, the number 2 at gmail.com. So ZAVOY, the number 2 at gmail.com. Feel free to reach out to me. Happy to talk to you guys. I am going to start a Discord as well. So if you guys are interested in joining a Discord, it's going to be all things mindfulness, but it's just going to be kind of my Discord. I have all kinds of Discords that I've set up, except one that's just like the Zach Discord, because I've only ever had a few hundred subscribers. So I was like, I'm not famous. Nobody cares what I have to say. But like I said, you guys, you know, over 1,400 of you have subscribed to my channel in the last like 2 weeks, which is insane. It feels crazy to me. So I really appreciate that. I would be pumped to have a Discord where we all just hang out and share our experiences. So final thought. Giga James says, I'm 14 and smoke weed. Any advice? I'm going to leave you with the same advice that I left for the last guy who was around your age. There was another guy who was 16 and he said he's been smoking for 2 years, and he was like, how do I get rid of this stuff? The best advice that I could give you as somebody who is twice your age and is still smoking weed, unfortunately, is the times in my life when it's been easiest not to smoke, I've had other things that are really interesting to me, right? So between when I was 14 and 18, I was really just getting into fitness and big time into fitness. And fitness came first. Somebody said, is your IG an underscore all one word? I think it's ZACH.OY. I don't really use Instagram very much, I'll be honest. I might get back into it if you guys are interested in here. But Metalhead responded to Giga James and said, I started at 10. After some years, it didn't end well. Yeah, dude. I mean, the younger you are, the quicker you need to catch it, because there is evidence. And I don't want to fear monger. I don't want to scare you, right? That's not my goal. But there is evidence that like the younger you smoke, especially before 18, the more damage that you will do to your hippocampus long term. So like your brain will in fact be underdeveloped. And so, but fear doesn't work. I'll just be honest. Fear never worked on me. So what I would say to you is what's worked best for me is finding things that I'm really interested in. So for me at your age, it was fitness. Fitness always came first, and it was because that was more important to me than weed, right? I would still smoke weed, but I would go work out. And then once my workout was over, I would get home, boom. Then I would smoke. But fitness was more important. It's just I wanted to be jacked. And I wanted to be, good looking, and I wanted to be strong, and I wanted to be capable. And that was more important to me. Other times in life, I hate to say it, but like gaming was more important to me for a while. But what I would say is just try really hard. Set a mental narrative that you don't smoke, or like you're somebody who's overcoming weed and you can do it. Because if you actively try to quit, every time that you pass on weed, you'll feel good. It will feel good to exercise the self-control, right? What else? So finding things that are really interesting to you, that's what's helped me the most. Like what's lit me up the most. Going away, geez, this guy's mad. Going away has helped me a lot. But I get like you're young and that doesn't necessarily work. For you, if you can't do that, what else? Yeah, I mean, for me, it's always just been when I was most engaged with certain things in my life. Kind of like McGruber with this chat. It's very important to him. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, you know, if we can be an asset to you, I mean, stick around in this channel, and you know, any advice that I can offer you in the future, I'd be happy to do that. But you know, setting a really strong intention and reminding yourself on a regular basis, tracking it. If you can have other people in your life hold you accountable, that helps a lot too. But for now, that's what we got. One last comment. Josh says, we smoke weed because this life is shit and pain. If your life is going well, quitting weed is easy. If you got something going on, smoking is the only escape some people have. Dude, that is so relatable. And I'm at a point in my life where I'm struggling, right? Things are not going great financially, especially. And so I feel that sense of like, oh my God, it'd be so great. But then I also know simultaneously, smoking weed is not going to help me make money, bro. Like that is going to make it even harder when it comes to like, theoretically, I could monetize this channel, right? If I'm high, there's no way I want to show up and make a video. The way that I mostly make money in the past few years is by raw, cold outreach for my business, whatever the business has been. It's a new business at the time. But to show up and do all of the work for cold outreach, it does not feel good, right? To do that while high. And so half of it, I agree with Josh to a large degree, right? That smoking is one of those things that helps life be bearable, but it's a double-edged sword, right? Because it also makes it really difficult, at least for me, to to function in a way that I could actually be achieving a lot. Yeah, so exactly, Josh. Boom. Josh is on the money with that one. Anyway, so I really appreciate you guys being here. If you guys want to do more streams like this in the future, definitely drop a comment, let me know. Obviously hit that subscribe button. It means a lot to me. But we will definitely be doing more of these streams in the past. This was clearly pretty popular. For those of you watching at home, thank you for sticking it out. I hope this was useful. But until next time, peace, much love, namaste, y'all, and keep it great. Adios.